My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. It's currently Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. It's 7:33 a.m. This is for purposes of documentation of when I'm capturing this video, which is additional documentation. This is documentation which is relevant to what is federal stalking, criminal surveillance on devices. surveillance in violation of your privacy rights, of your Fourth Amendment search rights, that the entities engage in, for example, while they're stalking by planes at the Ontario Town Square, like what is happening now. This is ongoing surveillance, while I am engaged in prosecuting the government for surveillance. This is also relevant to surveillance that's underway inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, where the people of the state are engaging in the surveillance that you hear the City of Ontario maintaining. The OVITT Family Community Library is maintaining surveillance inside of that venue, not a private business, not a business that is constitutionally underway or maintained by the City of Ontario. The City of Ontario is a sex offender. As you hear that plane activity, that is criminal conduct by not only the airlines, but the airport, and literally a demon that is recognized as a third party that's engaging in criminal surveillance. So you're down to that level of detail, the prosecution of the state. But I want to be clear, this is, and that's plane activity, by the way, at 7:34 a.m. What I'm documenting is federal stalking, and federal stalking is proven through what is tampering with documentation on my device, and that is only happening when you are aware of what is being captured on my device, which is pursuant to what is an unlawful search, what is invasion of my privacy for no legitimate purpose. This is pursuant to the ongoing surveillance that you know the City of Ontario is engaged in, that the gang stalker Paul Leon of some sort of fake mayor, some gang stalking mayor is engaged in, what the gang stalking governor Gavin Newsom is engaged in, while this system of public corruption, while the inhumane sexual violence, while the population is sharing in not only surveillance, which is stalking as a population, but engaging in what is domestic terrorism, as they are practicing what is a system of organized crime, murdering the targeted individual that they cannot contain, that they cannot keep under surveillance with the cooperation of that targeted individual. In other words, you can't successfully traffic them, you can't successfully threaten them, you can't blackmail them, you can't oppress them to the extent to where they will just give in or even acquiesce and become one of whatever these demons call themselves. They're nothing other than predators and murderers. The entities engaged in gang stalking. So this is relevant to what the OVITT Family Community Library is indeed engaged in. And so what I'm documenting right here on the bottom represents what I captured. As you can tell, I captured a picture of my receipt. On September 19, 2025, I completed a transaction at third-party facilitating venue Andy's Burgers at 310 East Hope Boulevard, and I took a picture of that receipt. And thankfully, that is showing the accurate time and date because a product of federal stalking, monitoring, and also monitoring by a government that's engaging in surveillance and is seeking to obstruct justice. And also was further incriminating the very demons that are documented while you are monitoring my device and then seeking to tamper with the information so that their identity can be concealed. And that's what this is a state actor, Dulce. She's gang stalking inside of the library on September 19th. 2025, not August 7th, 2025, like the entity engaged in. And so what you see this timestamp, this is not true with regard to what I'm documenting, what I actually engaged in, or when I actually captured a picture of my receipt at the OVITT Family Community Library that opened at 10 a.m. And I am taking pictures of not only my receipt that day, this is pictures that I'm taking that I had to retake because the entity, after I took pictures of Dolce, who's a demon-possessed gang stalker, she's engaged in harassing me. She's doing so with the people of the state, demons, puppets that are sitting around, studying their devices, monitoring with the demons that are both as patrons and demons that are both as employees. They are all engaged in what is monitoring. That's why Engineer Light fills the OVITT Family Community Library. That's why the Ontario International Airport is engaged in what is criminal surveillance by aircraft. That's why the City of Ontario is maintaining criminal surveillance by helicopter and the state's own planes. That's why the entity keeps the fake sun over the OVITT Family Community Library, as I've documented, for over 10 to 12 hours. That's why the entity is engaged in what is stalking with impossible light activity, both inside the OVITT Family Community Library and outside the OVITT Family Community Library. This is the entity that's engaged in what is kidnapping. That's why the entity is committed what is the ongoing evidence of targeting. The entity that is engaged in what is malicious assertions while they're keeping you under surveillance with the intent to obstruct justice while they are indeed targeting you. This is why the OVITT Family Community Library has engaged in, committed all of that that I just referenced. And what I documented on September 19th is on the top, and what I documented on September 19th is also on the bottom. However, the entity on September 19th engaged in what is
meddling with my device, and that is changing, tampering with the date that I documented. And the effect of that is that in my, as you can see here, in my pictures that are taken there in chronological order. So on the 19th, I couldn't find these pictures that I took on September 19th of this demon, Dolce, who was crouched on the opposite side. I'm sitting at station number 1, and Dolce is monitoring me. Dolce is a psychopath. Dolce is demon possessed. And Dolce is, again, with regard to her status, is a state actor engaging in criminal surveillance. She's also a violent sex offender monitoring my vagina in the bathroom of the OVITT Family Community Library, where she is engaged in gang stalking by place of employment. This is relevant to what is federal prison. She's also subject to federal prison because she is gang stalking, and that is also proven because the entity went to the extent to hide her identity, hide her criminal engagement, and monitoring me by tampering with the date and my device. Okay, I actually took her picture on the 19th, and when I found that this picture on the bottom was missing, these are the pictures that I took on September 19th, because I went right around the corner to go get an image of the demon that was monitoring me, harassing me, and psychologically torturing. That is stalking you with audible noise. And Dolce is working in impossible light activity. She has multiple shadows on the ground while the people of the state walk around. While these demons open and close this administrative door, they do so pursuant to what I do as I do it. They're monitoring, and they're demons, and those are psychopaths that are also sex offenders monitoring my vagina. All right, they're engaging in the sex offense at an inhumane level. The government is monitoring my vagina. The OVITT Family Community Library, Dolce, and every other gang stalker is monitoring my vagina as it's occurring inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, a sex offender. And the government's going to be prosecuted for that. The government that's engaged in sexual violence, the federal government, the state government, and officials like Jason Isaac Fields that are engaging in what is monitoring and obsessing over my vagina while engaging in what is conspiring my murder, while thousands of people are sharing in that obsession and that sexual violence. This is why Dolce is monitoring me inside of the library and knows what I'm doing as a demon. It's stacking these DVDs on the shelf at the same time that I make any minor move, at the same time that I operate my cell phone. And she also knew that I was documenting her, and that's also why the entity engaged in this, which is tampering with my evidence. First of all, it's legally relevant that it's evidence, it's documentation, but tampering with what is the timestamp, and that's what was changed. Okay, this is the true time at the top. This is the true time, and this is the pictures that I went back and I took a Dolce again after I found that the original ones that I took of her gang stalking me inside of the library were what I thought deleted. Okay, but it is tantamount to deleting because it is not in the place where it should be when I went to upload it. Why are you doing that? Because you want it to be, you don't want it to be uploaded as evidence. The demon possessed, they want to monitor my vagina. They want to stalk and be demons and engage in gang stalking, but they don't want you to see their face. They don't want you to know that they're a part of it. And those are the exact ones that are going to prison. Okay, the entity is engaging in this, and this is criminal obstruction of justice that Dolce is engaged in. And Dolce is doing that with the people of the state. Dolce is doing that with the city of Ontario. Dolce is doing that with the federal government. Okay, this demon is engaged in what is gang stalking as well. Should not be aware, but is very much aware of the fact that she's being documented. These are demons, and this is the government, and they know very well that I took a picture, and that's why the entity went behind in my device, unbeknownst to me. And these pictures disappeared, and they disappeared by changing the date. And so while I'm examining my phone this morning, September 24, 2025, I'm finding pictures that I took September 19th, 2025, and they are dated inaccurately. And that is the entity that is aware and seeking to suppress evidence that I'm capturing of these demons gang stalking. Now, the OVITT Family Community Library put these two new faces. I'd never seen these two demons before. They put them at entry at the time of open at the desk where I go typically to check out a reservation room. They're monitoring. All right, and then the entity goes behind and removes changes the time that they're present in order that I would not be able to find it in my device and I wouldn't upload it for the day. This is evidence of Title 18 federal stalking under 226(1)(a) subsections 1 and 2. This is federal stalking. This is the product of surveillance that is underway on your devices, that is underway on the internet. The entity that is engaging in surveillance, that is gang stalking, that is targeting for a criminal purpose of murder, theft, a theft of your identity. The entity that wants to steal your identity is going to get rid of you by either kidnapping or murdering you, okay, or both. This is the entity that's aware of what is being documented, and this is relevant to federal prison. OVITT Family Community Library employees and patrons are going to prison for kidnapping. They're going to prison for obstruction of justice, and they're going to prison for what is ongoing harassment and terrorism at an inhumane level. This is years of this particular venue monitoring with the airport that you hear gang stalking. The state of California has provided evidence against the OVITT Family Community Community Library, as you will prosecute that entire entity with the criminal activity that it is engaging in as an entire act, as an entire cooperative system. Okay, so you're going to prosecute them for what the Ontario Police Department is doing that they're sharing in, under the fake sun that they're all sharing in, with the airport that is sharing in that, with the entity that is engaging in what is monitoring in the bathroom with the demons that are stalking by helicopter, stalking with light activity inside and outside of the venue. This is how you're going to prosecute. And then the entity's engaging in this, tampering with my evidence that it knows is being in real time accumulated. And that's a federal no-no as well. Literally, I want to be clear, the demons that they call themselves protecting will go to federal prison for that. You're going to federal prison for it. So I just want to be clear, this is the entity that's engaging in that. This is the true date. I captured it on September 19th. The entity tampered with my evidence, changed it to August 7th, 4:55 a.m. Obviously, the library isn't even open at 4:55 a.m. And this is representing what is the true time that I captured this documentation, which is what you'll see here, September 19th. And that's why you see up here, after the entity removed my evidence, I took more pictures of the same sex offender, Dulce, who was engaged in gang stalking as an employee at that venue. Everything that they're doing is under the fake sun and in concert with the state that's maintaining massive surveillance by traffic, by aircraft, by placement of establishment. Wells Fargo is gang stalking. All of the businesses around the apartment complexes, everything, surveillance is underway by any and every one. And OVITT Family Community Library is concentrating all of that, and it is cooperatively engaging in that inside of the OVITT Family Community Library. And it includes federal stalking for the purpose of obstruction of justice, to avoid being identified. And what happens when that happens is that you get even more of an up-close, personal means of identifying you and prosecuting you for that. Dulce is responsible, so is the city, so is the state. The feds are responsible, but Dulce in particular, she's the one that's going to go to federal prison, in addition to whoever else is responsible for it. And the ordinary target individual doesn't bear that burden. You're going to document, and the government that thinks that it's avoiding anything, or the government that thinks that it's stopping something, that's, first of all, the entity is going to be subject to prison. So the person you think you're protecting is the person that's going to serve time for it. Not only that, the government is going to prosecute with regard to tampering with your devices, and the ordinary target individual doesn't have to worry about that part. But nonetheless, you do your documentation, okay? It is currently 7:45 a.m. This is documentation that I'm going to upload to September 19th, and that's why the date will reflect August 7th. But that's providence, okay? Because it's evidence that was tampered with, and it's evidence against the city of Ontario, against the entity that is indeed, I have already proven it. This is more evidence proving the same, that the entity is engaged in surveillance. The entity is engaged in what is obstruction of justice, meaning you're harassing and terrorizing me by helicopter with knowledge of the fact that you're being documented. You're going to prison for that. You're engaged in harassment and while you're being documented, stalking and harassing by commercial planes, you are also aware of it based on the nature of the crime of surveillance, and you engage in more of it with that knowledge. You're going to prison for that. This is what the entity is going to also be committed for, because that is demented behavior for the purpose of what is murder and kidnapping. And this entire entity is engaged in what is, again, thousands of people that are interested in my physical position in the bathroom, the way that my genitalia looks when I'm bending over, what is it that I'm thinking about while I'm relieving myself in the bathroom, ongoing monitoring of my vagina and all my genitalia that is between my legs while I'm wiping myself. This is the fascination that is sexually perverted and demented. It is a level of addiction and obsession by demons, okay? And that is shared by those who are actual homosexuals, like Dulce and the demons that are monitoring me. This is shared, it's identical, because they're demon possessed. And this is shared by Jason Isaac Fields with Dulce. It's shared by Tracy Banks with Dulce. It's shared by Michael Lorenz with Dulce, Alan D. Wapner with Dulce. They have the same condition. They're sharing in the same pattern of conduct by the masses that are engaging in surveillance on the roads and the highways. All of them are engaged in what is a sex offense that is inhumane. Monitoring Erica Spencer's vagina, having knowledge about what my vagina looks like, what it is that I am doing in the bathroom at the moment that I'm doing it. This is a population of sex offenders, and people like Jason Isaac Fields are not getting out of federal prison for it and still engaging in it. Jason Isaac Fields is still engaged in that sexual violence. He's a violent sex offender. This is a rapist, and this is a murderer, and this is a corrupt official who's never going to be in my presence. And this is relevant to appreciating the unlawful threat that the federal government poses. The federal government that has been engaged in targeting and now is proven as such by the criminal conduct literally of the state and the city of Ontario. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that engages in obstruction of justice with the intent to commit murder and conceal it. Hiding defendants, concealing evidence. Okay, it goes beyond just pictures. It goes with regard to framing the target individual for crimes that they didn't commit. This goes into what is taking out loans in their name when they've never taken out said loans. And then those demons going in court and bearing false witness. This is what this evidence is showing the character of that entity. The entity that's stalking by aircraft on the roads and the highways, by every establishment, and by every facilitating venue where the people of the state live. This is P.O.C. It is currently 7:48 a.m. on September 24, 2025. License 9EFH194. The people of the state, every establishment, every facilitating venue, that is, whether it's a place of residence or a business, this is the identification of sex offenders that are engaging in surveillance. So I am documenting sex offenders by license plate, by establishment, but even by department, as the entire city of Ontario is engaged in surveillance, stalking me, and doing so as I'm documenting it as well. That's relevant to what you will also see in the screenshots. You'll see the Ontario International Airport. You can hear it in the documentation, the video that you just listened to. Again, the very plain analysis is that very obvious. Let me stop using the word plain because I don't want to be confused with what I'm referring to, the entity engaging in surveillance using airplanes. Okay, the very obvious identifier is your ability to hear planes while I'm at the Ontario Town Square at 224 North Euclid Avenue, whereas as an investigation, as the prosecution will prove in court, because I've already proven it, there is no pilot taking off from the airport. That will include hovering planes where you will hear any plane activity, where there will be any interference, in other words, with my podcast, but for targeting at this location and targeting me at this location and targeting, which is also proven through the maintenance of a specific environment and the targeting by the people of the state who are demons, stalking with amplification, stalking with directed light, and stalking by their presence. Okay, and they're doing so as demons who are violent sex offenders, obsessing over my the curvature of my my hips, the posture of my body, the way I sit. The reason why I'm being so detailed is because that's the level of sexual violence, and what is perverted means of fascination by those who are sex offenders and sex offenders that are as an entity that don't want that to be exposed. And that's crucial with regard to understanding and appreciating federal legislation and federal prosecution for the sex offense, the perpetual sex offense committed by a public entity. And every single last person is acting as that sex offender, meaning it's going on your criminal record, and it is also going to be on a matter of public information that the government is prosecuted as what is, again, unprecedented, because the government's criminal conduct is unprecedented, and the government, the public entity, will be prosecuted as a sex offender. And that is proven through the pattern of conduct. And the government is such a sex offender that every sex offender that I'm documenting is sharing in that sexual violence. That's going on the criminal record, if you will, of the state, of the entity, the U.S. government, and also the people of the state, companies, etc. Okay? So this is identification of sex offenders. These are gang stalkers. License plate, like I stated before, license plate 9EFH194. License plate 7MAM913. Engaging in harassment upon gang stalking and furtherance of murder as well, speaking as a state. Doing so with the intent to obstruct justice while keeping the evidence under surveillance. License 58552X2. Priority Landscape Services, LLC. Gang stalking. Stalking with light. What they're engaging in is for purposes of monitoring me, and that's ongoing harassment and terrorism while they do so. And they also do so with real-time knowledge that they are also being documented, and that it did not deter them from engaging in ongoing sexual violence, stalking, surveillance, and acting in furtherance of murdering me as an entity. This is, again, all of this is why Jason Isaac Fields, a very delusional, very demented psychopath who is engaged in targeting through all of this criminal conduct, he's going to prison, and he's okay. That's the entity. This is an afterthought when you're understanding and you're prosecuting that. Tracy Banks, an afterthought. She's going to prison. She's you're not getting out of prison. So this is an entity that's engaging in this in furtherance of murder, and summoning all of this against an American citizen is absolutely designed to accomplish their murder and permanent kidnapping, which ultimately the entity, after they're done with whatever demons are siphoning from you, stealing from you, doing to you, they kill you. So it is ultimately in furtherance of murder. Tracy and Jason are going to federal prison. Okay, and then whatever black voodoo, hoodoo that they've engaged in sending, no demon is going to kill me. It's not going to happen. It's going right back to them and everybody else that participated in those suicidal rituals. It's going right back to them. And I want to be clear, the people that say that I'm documenting, the government, the Ontario Police Department, they're engaged in witchcraft, they're engaged in spell work, they're engaged in sex rituals, they're engaged in these things, and it is suicide. And this is why you're going to witness a lot of people dropping dead. All right, it is currently 8:46 a.m., by the way, and the entity's engaging in the pattern of conduct. And I want to be clear, I'm speaking what are spiritual truths, just like Christ Jesus is the Lord God who was seated on the throne, alive and well. And when he says, do not touch, do no harm, he means that. And you shouldn't be sacrificing anybody because you think that you can get away with it because they don't have some sort of spiritual covering, let alone when you engage in that, which you should not be doing, you'll do it to the wrong person. And then you're going to suffer the consequences for it. This is an entity that's engaged in what is murdering, targeting people. These are serial killers. And why? As a pattern. This is a system. I'm not the first person that they've targeted in furtherance of murder. I'm not the first person that Tracy Banks has murdered. I'm not the first person that the Ontario Police Department has murdered as an entity, has targeted and took their lives, and then controlled the narrative afterward and claimed, oh, they just killed themselves. Oh, they were that's why they're defaming my character. And they did it to somebody like myself. Okay, somebody with no criminal record, somebody with no drug addiction or alcohol addiction history, somebody that is educated, somebody that financed their own education, a go-getter, ambitious, okay, self-sufficient, somebody that is well educated and can speak and represent. They had the audacity to do it to that person. It was a trap from the beginning. This is judgment. And the demon possessed, I want to be clear, part of their judgment is that they're so mentally ill, they're still engaging in that which is already a failure. Everybody else that is sane and normal and healthy is looking at this, can see that they're not going toward any goal that they want. They're going to prison, they're being exposed, they're being prosecuted, etc. They're also going to be subject to what is a judgment in the spirit, meaning the suicide act that they committed when they sought to direct voodoo and black magic toward me to take my life, and then claim that I committed suicide because that's what they plan to do. While I was kidnapped in some sort of cell. None of that is going to happen, and it's unfortunately going to happen to them. And by unfortunate, I mean, I'm not celebrating the demise of anyone, but what I do, you know what I do praise God for? For justice. Because on the one hand, while people would try to justify their sin by saying, oh, it's all covered by the blood, that's not true. You do not have a license to sin. You cannot go around violating people and then claim, oh, well, I'm forgiven by, you are a lie out of, you do not know Christ Jesus, and that is not why he died and rose from the dead. To justify your sin that you continuously live in and harming other people. You're going straight to hell like somebody that never even heard of Christ Jesus. And so the entity's engaging in this conduct, and what I do celebrate is that Christ Jesus is both merciful and gracious, and he's also a righteous, violent God with regard to doing justice. Okay? And people like to forget the latter. They just want to focus on one aspect, and he is all of that. He is a defender of those that can't defend themselves. He's the father to the fatherless. While those predators thinking that they can engage in targeting someone that has no protection, that's a wicked, wicked person. That is the demon possessed. That's why they're engaging in bullying one person. And they were set up to believe that I have no defense. And by the way, you are a fool in thinking that. There's nothing ever about me, contrary to what Satan had them thinking, that I was a fool, that I'm stupid, that I'm weak. And I've never demonstrated or exhibited any of that. Being long-suffering, being loving, being forgiving, you've confused that with my ability to treat you like the enemy that you are and prosecute you under the laws that exist, regardless of your identity. You think that, okay, that was a trap. And not only that, they have taken themselves out. And this is to speak to the reality of Christ Jesus, the fact that he says not to engage in the practice of witchcraft and sorcery and these things, the things that are, the entity has taken its own life. It's taken its own well-being. they're so mentally ill, they're still going toward, and they're doing it before the world. They're engaging in ongoing criminal conduct that they're going to be held accountable for. They're engaging in what is demented and sexually perverted behavior that their family, people that are going to try to shuffle away from what it is that their family, their mom, their uncle, their cousin, their whoever engaged in, trying to give an explanation for what they were a part of, what they were engaging in. This is an entity that's engaging in that, and what you can't take back are the sex rituals. What you can't take back is your contract with Satan. What you can't take back is the harm you've already inflicted. You can't take that back. You cannot take it back. And with regard to justice, you can be as apologetic as you are, but the demon-possessed are not apologetic. They're still gang stalking. Jason Isaac Fields is not apologetic. He is a predator. He's still gang stalking. And you cannot take back what is some sort of spirit of death. It's going out and it's going to boomerang back towards you. It's not going to touch me. And this is an entity, you're witnessing what is the demise of the entity, even while they're so mentally ill and they don't appreciate that. But you're talking about being engaged in years of witchcraft and spiritually targeting people, and you can't understand what's the equation here. And so then you're talking about, what are you doing? You're just spinning your wheels until your demise, which everyone is going to witness and know why, and they're also going to know what you did because of what happened to you. Like, this is how comprehensive judgment is here in this case. And it's also going to be in a federal tribunal. This is P.O.C. So the entities engaged in surveillance at the Ontario Town Square. Robert Rivera is gang stalking. Robert Rivera is the demon that's gang stalking at the Economy Inn inside of his hotel room, with the entity that's stalking by commercial planes. Ontario International Airport has no flights hovering over that hotel room either. All right, the entities engaging in the pattern of conduct in the specific environment. There's no sunrise and sunset. And what the entity is doing at the OVITT Family Community Library in the Ontario Town Square, there's no sun period that is going to be at the Economy Inn. That's how exclusive the prosecution for demons like Robert Rivera is. The entities engaged in the pattern of conduct. Robert Rivera is the entity that's engaged in what is surveilling me with the Ontario Police, who you see gang stalking on Lemon Avenue, while Brightview is stalking with light activity on Euclid Avenue, while the entity is gang stalking at Wells Fargo at 240 North Euclid Avenue, stalking by going on camera, which I will prosecute you for its criminal presence, and I'll prosecute that establishment. That's a gang stalker, also surrounded with the evidence proving that Wells Fargo is engaged in surveillance, and they're gang stalking, they're targeting. And the use of that establishment is for that criminal purpose, which Wells Fargo is fully apprised of. That's why their employees are demon-possessed gang stalkers as well. And I have all the evidence supporting all of that. The entities engaging in a P.O.C. and the people of the state that I'm documenting are violent sex offenders, keeping my vagina under surveillance. License plate, like I stated, 58552K2. And again, Priority Landscape Services, LLC. 9DYN403, 84489J3, 6YBM532, license 9BCE522, license 8KJJ221, 8VCC907, license plates 8COX624, gang stalking at the 280 North Limit Apartments. The Ontario Downtown Luxury Apartments located at 320 North Euclid Avenue, gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport, doing donuts, U-turns over that apartment building to stalk me in the path, gang stalk me while I'm uploading everything onto the internet via the ARCO Wi-Fi. All right, and they're gang stalking me at the Ontario Town Square on what is the south side of that apartment complex. And then when I go to the ARCO parking lot, where the fake sun's over my head, by the way, at 12:34 in the afternoon, and you're looking at it, what is on the east side of my person, when you're engaged in a documented pattern of rising and setting a fake sun over the targeted individual, that's where the Ontario International Airport is also proven to be gang stalking, and doing so by flying over the top of that Ontario Downtown Luxury Apartments. And they're doing so based on relative to my presence. That's the term relevant positioning. Your position is relative to where the targeted individual that you are stalking is located. All right, and they're doing so in that specific environment. That is an apartment, the entire apartment complex. That is Sarah's Regis Group engaged in state surveillance in furtherance of murder. License plate. Oh, the Ontario Police Department. corrupt actor Mike LORENZ being documented, being removed from office while the entity is gang stalking through the demons, the gang members of the Ontario Police, using the resources of a police department to engage in criminal activity, surveillance, and their demons in doing so. That's also relevant to how they're going to be prosecuted, and they are going to be prosecuted for also kidnapping and criminal defamation. All right, upon kidnapping, license plate 9VHT701. Brightview is gang stalking. License 8Z01076. They're engaged in what is driving around the perimeter where I'm located, creating light activity, the flashing of light, which is what the City of Ontario is doing now, which is why you hear the substantially loud crashing of dumpsters. That's demonic. It's amplification in the specific environment, while Paul Leon is being documented, one to be removed as a gang stalking mayor, while the municipality is engaged in criminal monitoring. License 9SUZ234. License 9TNE418. License 8KES521. All right, license 8EKP863. License 9ECP526. License 4C29351. License plate 07403E4. License plate 9JDN181. 7V0A498, I believe. License, maybe I can scratch that one. License 90082D3. License 14239W2. That's a large truck. It's a commercial vehicle. License 6RQE755. They are also engaged in gang stalking in the shoes of third-party gang stalker Lyft. All right, so that is Lyft that's also being documented. And if they're not engaged in, and this is, I'll be very specific, it's 8:35 a.m. So if this third party is not in the process of engaging in what is business on behalf of, in concert with Lyft, which would be documenting Lyft. Lyft is a documented gang stalker. They're headquartered in California. Every business in California is engaged in the P.O.C. Okay, I've already covered this. But with regard to this third party, when they're engaged in what is, for example, providing Uber or Lyft services, Uber and Lyft are gang stalking, period. When you see a logo, you're going to document that, because this is disincentivizing businesses that are gang stalking from gang stalking and from permitting the people of the state, the government, to use their logos to maliciously engage in targeting someone. Moreover, if this third party is not actually providing a ride to another third party via Lyft, this is still relevant to the fact that they are engaged in what is gang stalking using the Lyft as services, as Lyft would be like a contract. They would be like a contracted employee with Lyft, okay? And that's relevant to prosecuting Lyft. But under all circumstances, Lyft is being documented right here. Just want to point that out. License plate 9MDX135. And Brink Security is gang stalking. Vehicle 192275. And that is, it's always an Indiana plate and on Brick's vehicles. License 2961971. License 9MFG936. And license 9NZD036. License ISH4X4, documented this demon on more than one occasion. All right, the images will show demonic pacing, the pedestrians on Euclid Avenue on the sidewalk, the fake sun's moving in alignment to me while I'm walking. It's going the speed that I'm going, in the direction that I'm going along Euclid Avenue, while demons are pushing strollers, while demons are crossing paths, stalking as the people of the state, massive surveillance. And that's what you'll see. The fake sun is at what is 8:37 a.m. Where the entities gang, that's Michael Gerken, that's being removed from office, from position, license. Oh, by the way, they were also gang stalking at the OVITT Family Community Library entrance yesterday. That's all about me, and that's why they're losing a fire department. Also because they engaged in kidnapping, and this is not firefighting, this is surveillance. And since the city of Ontario is engaged in criminal conduct and surveillance and sexual violence monitoring by vagina as a fire department, the two do not mix. It's being removed. Okay, this is criminal summoning under the fake sun, which you will see in the same position that it is in, by the way, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon as I exit the OVITT Family Community Library. All right, where the Ontario Fire Department are demons engaging in what is light activity, relevant positioning, and audible activity. And the demons do that when I state evidence that is damning, such as surveillance by demons pacing on the sidewalk. Proven to you by a fake sun that's along Euclid Avenue, also during the Route 66 show, where they're all gang stalking and feigning focus on the vehicles when you're looking at the fake sun along the same street, in alignment to me on the same street. It's not in alignment to Starbucks at Euclid and E Street. It's in alignment to me where I'm located on the same street after 6 p.m. That's relevant to the demons identifying Michael Gerken, who's being removed, and that fire department that's engaged in kidnapping and exhibited mental illness. That's also why it's being removed. The mentally unstable have no business engaging in firefighting. They represent a threat to the public. Also, they represent a threat while they're engaging in what is surveillance with the people of the state, in furtherance of murder, engaged in what is monitoring my vagina. The criminal expenditures and what is keeping my vagina under surveillance is why the Ontario Fire Department, Michael Gerken, are being removed. Okay? That's relevant to what you heard right now. And on the Google Drive, the uploaded image will include at 8:37 a.m. I'll go ahead and give you a screenshot. I can serve up the evidence any way you'd like it, because facts are facts and there is no avoiding them. The demon possessed that are living amongst illusions, which is proving mental illness, as they're going to be prosecuted based on those illusions that they operate and live by and target other people with. They're also going to be committed thereby. Okay, the entity is using an illusion of the natural environment after 4 p.m. as I exit the OVITT Family Community Library, which is nothing other than what you see at 8:37 and 6 seconds. I'm standing on Euclid Avenue in between the downtown Ontario luxury apartments and Wells Fargo, facing the facing the OVITT Family Community Library, which would be from my position. I'm facing east. When I am exiting the OVITT Family Community Library, the direction that I'm facing in this picture at 8:37 and 6 seconds, I am facing Euclid Avenue, where I'm facing west at the entrance of that venue, and I'm standing in between the Wells Fargo at 240 North Euclid Avenue and the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. It's the same location. I'm facing east in the morning, I'm facing west in the afternoon, and you'll see the fake sun. All right, this is the entity that sounds sirens, as I point that out, while they're monitoring the evidence. It's the same thing when they fly over my head by helicopter while they're monitoring the evidence. It's the same thing when AMR starts sounding sirens while they're monitoring the evidence. All right? As the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct with the intent to obstruct justice, it's the same thing when the entity is sounding plane activity flying over my head while they're monitoring the evidence. When the fake sun that is covered up and then it starts shining as I speak out regarding something that's very damning and triggering, it's while they're monitoring the evidence. The sun that shouldn't even be there. And their very tactics that are supposed to psychologically torture me into a state of shock, and I'm just supposed to have a breakdown in the middle of the town square, so then Jason Fields and Tracy Banks and Eric Spencer and Tommy Allen Banks, everybody that was lying in court, and the gang stalking judges that accepted all of that perjurious testimony and what was a criminal act at the outset, even before you get to the fact of the substantive information exchange were criminal as well. That is serving to prosecute them, because the sun shouldn't be here in the first place. And none of what the entity is engaging in is serving for their purposes. It's serving to prosecute them. While you shine your fake sun while you're triggered, I'm prosecuting you with that. While you stalk in helicopter while you're triggered, I'm prosecuting you with that. And the entity, and don't forget who's going to prison. The demons that are engaged in kidnapping, they're going to prison. Because the sun shouldn't be on the same street when I'm looking at A. Morris at 6 o'clock in the evening. The same A. Morris that committed kidnapping in 2020. The same A. Morris that engaged in criminal summoning at the OVITT Family Community Library in 2021. The same A. Morris that's engaged in monitoring my evidence and engaging in criminal summoning at the OVITT Family Community Library, as I just saw on the same day, happened to be referring and looking at the evidence concerning her on the internet that day when she's engaged in criminal summoning at the OVITT Family Community Library. She's going to prison. Okay? That's the agency that's being disbanded. Gang stalking. All right? That's P.O.C. AMR or Ontario Police is probably AMR. Yeah, it's AMR. Those are the mentally ill that have no business in the medical profession. Okay? And the demons that are engaging in that, like I stated, they do so while they're monitoring the evidence. The fake sun is rising here. So they're already surrounded, so you know everything that they're doing. This is ongoing surveillance of me. And so are the psychopaths getting up and sitting back down at the benches where they're gang stalking. Mentally ill sex offenders keeping my vagina under surveillance. Being targeted, being stalked by a mentally ill population is also why the government is being prosecuted and the people of the state are facing the intense prosecution that they are. Because you're talking about highly unstable and imbalanced stalkers that are obsessed with you and stalking you while they're being told that they're going to be paid money, while being told that they're going to get a new car, while they're being told that they're going to be able to get away with whatever crime that they're being blackmailed to engage, whatever it is that the entity is. These are psychopaths sitting around pacing around me, pacing back and forth. These are psychopaths that are also serial killers, and they're obsessed with the position of my body while I wipe myself in the bathroom. That's how detailed their sexual violence and fascination with me is. You're going to prison, Jason Fields. They're going to prison. Okay? The entity that's gang stalking, A. Morris, is going to federal prison. There's a laundry list of those who are off the top. They're going to prison. Federal prison. Okay? And you know, and they know that they're going to prison. That's why they're going berserk sounding sirens, which does nothing other than incriminate them. Nothing other than incriminate. Because you understand the pattern of conduct in the environment where activity is surrounding me, where a bunch of demons are stalking. And they're stalking when they have not even cashed in on what they promised Satan, a sacrifice. They all sacrificed themselves. And in doing so, they forfeited their mind state. They're all mentally ill. And I said that years ago, okay? They're mentally ill, and their entity is engaged in the pattern of conduct, which is you're witnessing the uncloseted, if you will, mental illness. You are also witnessing what is the mental illness by those that are acting in furtherance of what is a lost objective. You're not doing anything of the things that you betted that you were going to do. And in fact, everybody's witnessing your failed sacrifice, and you're also going to be prosecuted before the world, before the public, before the country for what you sought to engage in. And they also know that this is what you routinely engage in as a state and as a U.S. government. And that's the totality of judgment amongst the demon-possessed that you need to know surround you. So I will provide a screenshot about the entity that is gang stalking under the fake sun at the same location where it is after 4 p.m. where American Medical Response, the mentally ill that are going to be removed from the medical profession, okay? In the way that they're engaging in violence pursuant to psychological torture, they also derive pleasure from harming people that are put in the back of their ambulances, that they're kidnapping, and they're taking their lives, and they're providing false narratives as to what happened to them. And when you are a corrupt entity, this is the entity that controls that narrative. And you know all of that because the demons are operating AMR ambulances, gang stalking me under a fake sun. Corruption, psychopathic disorders, dishonesty, untrustworthiness, murderers, okay? It is license 9RZS 105, and that was criminal summoning at 9:05 a.m., at or around 9:05 a.m., by the way. License plate 6YYE 256, license 8PBR046, license KNYKID2, went right inside of Wells Fargo, by the way, who's gang stalking. License plate 6MLG869, license 5XAT008, license 7JSP241, license 9MVL536, license 7BVU009, license 80193N1, inspect and repair. This is a business. That third party is a sex offender, and so is the demon operating that vehicle, sex offender, okay? That's a commercial vehicle, DNR, inspect and repair. They're gang stalking, and they're violent sex offenders. That business keeping my vagina under surveillance, gang stalking, surveilling as an entity, doing so while driving under a fake sun, speaking to mental illness by the demon, operating that commercial vehicle, and doing so in furtherance of murder. Okay, and obsessed with my vagina, and obsessed with everything what I do concerning my vagina, which that business, which that third party, which the entity itself that business and that sex offender operating that vehicle represents has no legitimate interest, as they are acting as the state. Okay, P.O.C. license 7TVT579, and Landeros Landscaping. They are gang stalking. Another Ontario business, City of Ontario, is fully corrupt. That's a gang stalking business. They're crossing path under the fake sun, monitoring. License plate 7TUF 903. License 9591001. License 7Z13092. And this sex offender is gang stalking by a place of employment. License 8VXF855. Her and every other employee is engaged in criminal monitoring and are violent sex offenders, keeping my vagina under surveillance. Okay? And that's, again, the sex offense committed as a public entity. License 7Z13092. Yeah, KNYKID2 went right inside of Wells Fargo, gang stalking and doing so. All right, and they're sharing in surveillance with the demons that are in gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square, such as 200 North Euclid Avenue. Mule Car Smokehouse is gang stalking, the ongoing sound that you hear in the background. That's a demon maintaining noise while the demons are maintaining flashing of light. That is Brightview, City of Ontario graffiti. It's one of these demons that are always engaged in, that's the City of Ontario. Flashing of light, fake sun, presence while they're monitoring with incessant noise, and that noise also follows my activity on my devices and my physical movements. And this is the same exact formula. That's Mule House Smokehouse. The fake sun is over me at B Street in Euclid at that same smokehouse, while the Ontario police fly over me, stalking me, and doing so coming from the OVITT Family Community Library. And that day, Robert Rivera is also gang stalking under the fake sun with the Ontario Police Department. It is currently 9:12 a.m. and this is Wednesday, September 24, 2025. This is the pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. Okay, let me get this real quick. All right, Ontario Police stalking with the Ontario International Airport, taking images, the same P.O.C. So you have, I believe his name is Goldfinger. He's on video gang stalking at the same address after 6 p.m. While the Ontario International Airport is crossing path flying over me at the Ontario Town Square. It is 9:37. You'll see the fake sun shining. This is the same location where the fake sun is present. I took a screenshot. You will see the address of the fake sun at the same location that it is at 8:37 a.m. as it is at 4 o'clock when I exited the OVITT Family Community Library on Sunday. And the entities engaging in what is criminal summoning, talking to a gang stalker. The demon that they're talking to is one that's engaged in surveillance inside of the OVITT Family Community Library all day. And I'll go ahead and take a picture of that right now. This is all federal prison for all three parties, by the way, all three of them, including the demon that they're conversing with. This demon's engaged in bathroom monitoring inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, where the entity keeps the fake sun. This is Goldfinger with his foot on the bench. And this is the demon on a communication device pacing back and forth. And this is an entity that's engaged in what is monitoring together with helicopters, stalking me. And these two demons are in vehicle 1021, license plate 1591659, and this is how pathetic and desperate. You need to understand that the Ontario police are demon possessed, and they are obsessed with my vagina. These are demons that are obsessing over me, and one of the reasons why they're obsessed with is because of the contracts that they have with Satan. They practice spell work, they practice voodoo, they're engaged in what is Satanism. They're engaged in what is pedophilia, because that's relevant to the demonic behaviors of the demon-possessed, that are engaged in what is analogous. Somebody like me who is a Christ follower, somebody with a
somebody with a saved soul as opposed to a demon-possessed person like the demons of the Ontario Police. Gang stalking with black people, by the way. I just want to be clear if you want to make it a race issue, because it's not. But the black people in California talk about Black Lives Matter while they're gang stalking with white police officers, Latino police officers. They're engaged in what is under the fake sun, the same P.O.C, and they're engaged in surveillance. I'll read you their license plate right now, second. They're engaged in Title 18 federal stalking. Remember, moving, being present in the environment with your communication device is how you're engaged in monitoring. And black folks in California are demon-possessed, and they're engaged in the same satanic system of surveillance and furtherance of murder. And they're doing so with the entity license 1591659. And the fake sun is present at this same venue as I'm exiting and documenting the same agency, by the way, after 6 p.m., including Goldfinger. They're both bearing guns. They're both wearing identification representing an agency where they're exercising authority that they don't have, but that's the malice by gang stalking police officers, and they're both going to federal prison. The entity that's engaged in criminal summoning by talking to a gang stalker, this is where they focus their attention when they're gang stalking the target individual. And you know that because the fake sun is moving from the side of the large clock at the Ontario Town Square to what is the 280 North Limit Apartments as I move. This is where the entity is stalking, and you're looking at what is the mental illness of demons that are obsessed with my vagina. The Ontario Police Department are engaged in pedophilia. They're engaged in trying to conceal murder. They're engaged in trying to conceal my identity. They're engaged in acting in furtherance of the conspiracy to murder me as an entity. That's why that police department is stalking, and it is proven to be stalking also using the helicopters of that agency, and they're doing so as demon-possessed people wearing police uniforms. This is called criminal summoning, and they're going to federal prison. This is relevant to psychological torture. They're demons that are literally pacing under a fake sun right now. And these are the demons that engaged in monitoring at the 7-Eleven, the same agency, Owens and Barton, gang stalking at 12 o'clock in the morning with 7-Eleven, and they're engaged in that P.O.C. And I am at the actual focus while they're engaged in what is addressing what is the third party that is gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square. Let's listen to what the demon has to say. What?
So would you like any help?
What did you call me?
Miss Spencer.
How do you know my name?
I've talked to you.
What's your name?
Officer Ornelas.
Ornelas?
Yes.
When did we talk, Ornelas? This is audible activity?
When we were trying to get you resources with the housing team, with Kevin.
I spoke with you, or you were in the presence of the city of Ontario who I was talking to?
I talked to you briefly.
What did we talk about?
If you wanted resources.
You asked me if I wanted resources, or did the city of
And
Ontario?
I introduced you to Kevin from the housing
No,
team.
Kevin came up to me and talked to me myself. I did document that because the demon-possessed are liars. He's the one that I was speaking to. I know Kevin, and I still speak with him. And he was monitoring with you then, but let's be accurate and recall the facts. We did not have a conversation, and that is a very specific, small bit of information for you to know my whole name. You study the clients of City of Ontario that provide vouchers for hotel rooms?
No.
I mean, that is where the Ontario Police were flying over my hotel room by helicopter. Is that why you know my
I'd
name?
just like to know people that are in my area.
Your area?
Yeah.
Okay, your area, which is under the fake sun. We'll use that as an admission. Anyway, what is your badge number, Ornelas? 20999. Okay, the amplified train activity is audible noise. He is monitoring. And this is an entity that is, again, communicating a threat by virtue of presence. The people, that's not the Union Pacific train. All right, the people of the state are monitoring license 5R10755. This is criminal summoning Goldfinger. Is that your partner's name? Is that your partner's name? Goldfinger?
No.
It's Gold something.
No.
Yes, it is. I documented him on video gang stalking under the 6 p.m. fake sun. He's sitting in his vehicle at the Ontario Town Square, and this is how you're going to prosecute them. The fake sun is over me, over the same apartment building, and after 6 p.m., he is in his vehicle, parking, in an Ontario Police Department vehicle, while the people of the state are molesting me with impossible light, while the fake sun on the same strip of road where it is right now at the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, and those demons are monitoring with the Ontario Police, okay? And he's sitting in his vehicle, and I get him on video, and it's uploaded to YouTube right now, and he is engaged in criminal monitoring just like he is right now under the guise of having a conversation with the people of the state while they're engaging in the elements of monitoring. Okay, the black folks gang stalking. Let me give you these black folks. We are not brothers and sisters because we're melanated. These are demons. License 8DYSOT1, that's a gang stalking female. License 9JBR646, and gang stalking with license 9JUE547, and they don't share the same race at all. Okay? They share the same criminal activity, however. They share the same criminal engagement in targeting and furtherance of murder. They share the same sex offense, monitoring my vagina, while then they're around kids and engaging in what is family life like they're normal, like they're not predators and they're psychopaths. And they're monitoring with the Ontario Police Department that's being disbanded, and this is why. Okay, this is P.O.C. The entity's engaging with is criminal summoning. It's 9:43 a.m. I showed you the screenshot of the fake sun that's remaining. Hi, your name is... Now, I did speak with him because I remember talking to him about, but I don't remember speaking with you, sir. But that's fine. What's your name?
Goldfinger.
Goldfinger? He said your name isn't Goldfinger. So now you want it? It's Golder? That looks like, no, it's not Goldfinger, but you don't want to give your name. It's C. Let me go ahead and get a picture of it. I did document him. It starts with a G. And this is, again, the other one giving his name is Bob. Misidentifying themselves when they're engaged in here, they're stalking me and monitoring me, okay? While they're, that's a federal obstruction charge, while they're gang stalking. So I'm gonna show you this. All right, his name does start with a G. His first initial starts with a C. And he's engaged in gang stalking. The fake son is here at 9:43 a.m. And the fake son is still here over me at 6 p.m. This is 224 North Euclid Avenue. This is P.O.C. They're both going to federal prison. All right, the entities engaging in what is criminal summoning with the people of the state. Having conversations with them is criminal presence in the path. That's how gang stalkers that are terrorists, that are also obsessed with your vagina. Remember who else was putting these two demons in prison? A Casada, a homosexual wearing an Ontario Police Department uniform, where the fake son is here at 12:13 in the afternoon over me, where this department is doing what? Criminal summoning, talking to the demon-possessed people of the state, keeping me under surveillance inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, where the demons are engaging in the ritual, driving around the turn circle while the fake son's over me, and it's still over me at this same address where the Ontario Fire Department, American Medical Response, and you have the demons of the Ontario Police on the side of the OVITT Family Community Library, and they're outside of the same OVITT Family Community Library, where a 3-hour difference, you're speaking to what is the presence of that same fake sun, which is relevant to that same supernatural duration of time where the sun doesn't move. The sun, in fact, doesn't move and it remains over me. And talking to the people of the state is the people of the state going to federal prison, okay? They're sharing in psychological torture, and you are not imagining or paranoid about anything when the police are stalking you, where they're obsessed with your vagina, when they're engaging in sexual violence with homosexual females that enter the bathroom, keeping you under surveillance, engaging in sexual violence with their little demon-possessed children, and maintaining activity while homosexuals like A. Casada of the Ontario Police are stalking outside of that same library building. What that fake son is proving, and that pattern of conduct by that department is proving that they are in fact focused on me, the target individual, and not the demon that they're having a conversation with. Demons that they then utilize as a means of, and the reason why they're sounding their sirens and that they're present in the first place. It's called criminal summoning. All right, they're going to federal prison. Okay, this demon that thinks that it's funny to conceal his identity while he's engaged in federal stalking and furtherance of murder during an ongoing public investigation. The demons that are misidentifying himself, doing so while he is, again, this is what Owens and Barton, those demons are doing, calling him, stating that his name is Bob inside of the 7-Eleven, maintaining a conversation. They're doing so in Engineer Light. I'm showing you the specific, they're gang stalking with immigrants. They're engaged in what is present to harass me, because that's how important I am. Just like right now, I am the focal point. I'm so important that you put a whole fake sun over me where it sets at the same address, but that's also how you're going to prison. Okay, that's mental illness also exhibited by you when you're looking at that level of malice and that extent to go to gas up a helicopter and use it to follow me around, to fly, to use a helicopter and fly around me and over me for an hour straight, to use it to engage in what is criminal activity in the first place. That agency is being removed, okay? And they're engaged in what is the pattern of conduct, and that agency is engaged in the pattern of conduct. I'm capturing them stalking at this address, and under that fake sun, you're talking about what's going to be literally tic-tac-toe. Federal prison, federal prison, federal prison, federal prison, as the body of evidence of the Ontario Police gang stalking me and doing so in that specific environment is proving how they are maniacal psychopaths and they are caught in their own trap, their so-called trap. They're not even clever. It's not even smart. It's the dumbest thing ever to be under a fake sun. That which is over you in Florida is going to serve to prosecute these demons. But I have my own body of evidence speaking to what is remaining over one building, remaining over one person for the duration of the day. Okay, while the entity is doing things like keeping it over Woodside Senior Apartments, where Tracy Banks is their co-defendant, and she's gang stalking me right along with them, while they're engaging in that same pattern of conduct, and they're going to prison for it. All right, the entity is engaged in that. You can clearly see the images of the demons that are gang stalking, and I want to be clear, this is an entity that is obsessed with my vagina in particular. They are engaged in what is obsessing over me. This is why an entity is entering into the bathroom. It's not about them relieving themselves. They're engaged in simultaneous activity creation for the desperate and obsessed demons of the Ontario Police, who both want to do sexual experimentation with my genitalia. They want to inspect and touch. They want to penetrate. They want to examine. They want to engage in all manner of sick, demonic experiments, but they also want to murder me at the same time. And the entity wants to first conduct that sexual violation in a means where I cannot resist, in a means where I can't say no. That's the sex offender. And that's also the sex offender that's engaging in surveillance in places like bathrooms. And that's the entity that's doing so for Jason Fields, who's going to prison. Okay? They're doing so as the people of the state, entering inside of that bathroom with the same criminal objective. And how do you know that? Because the fake sun is sitting over the building that incorporates that bathroom. While a bunch of demons know what you're doing and they enter and exit that bathroom with knowledge of that, with you as the focal point. They enter and exit that bathroom with knowledge of your intention to go into that restroom or even be around that restroom, and just the possibility that you're there. They're making sure that they're engaging in surveillance, stalking you on your way in, stalking you while you're in there, and stalking you on your way out. Okay, that's the entity that's engaging that. Going out of your way to have engage in criminal summoning with the demon-possessed gang stalker, that is not clever. And it's also a very heavily documented pattern of conduct by that agency. And this is also understanding how gang stalkers are engaging in surveillance and not law enforcement while they're wearing police uniforms. They are going to federal prison. All right, the entity is engaging in what is criminal summoning, and this is the same failed strategy which I've exposed from the outset, and they're going to federal prison for that. This is federal stalking that the entity is engaged in. It's a violation of federal law. Federal stalking, the Ontario Police Department is engaging in with a population with the intent to psychologically torture, with the intent to criminally defame. What's the purpose in gang stalking somebody by talking to somebody else? To falsely depict the character of that person that would claim that would assert that as being mentally ill, which the entity did so in a manner that they couldn't even support. They just made it up. Because I'm not engaging in what is talking to them. I go and I document them. So you're concerned with me, and I'm your true concern, because that's why you come over and talk to me. I'm standing on the sidewalk, having what would be a conversation on my phone, which shouldn't be drawing attention to you, but for you're being focused on me. The entity, I'm not running around with a gun in my hand. I'm not screaming at the top of my lungs, oh my gosh, they're stalking me. This is what the entity would have liked for me to have done. But I didn't. I conducted a public investigation and I published all of it on the internet. While then they failed in what they thought was going to be the reaction to their psychopathic pattern of conduct. And it is also showing what is their actual mental illness and the malicious purpose in seeking to criminally defame, falsely depict the character of the targeted individual that they know very well is gifted, that they know very well is highly perceptive and knows the malicious intent behind what they're doing. And they fail in that. The purpose behind having a conversation as a police department with the people of the state, like what Quesada is doing under the 12:13 p.m. fake sun at the same location. All right, like what the demons of the Ontario Police at 1:07 p.m. Are doing at that same location under the fake sun, as I'm documenting a group of them at the entrance of the OVITT Family Community Library, like what I'm documenting when those demons engage in a tactic of psychological torture and leave an Ontario Police Department vehicle outside of the entrance upon my return from the Ramada by Windham. This is about after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's presence. Whether the demons, again, they are taking in jest what is going to be their they're going to be trying to suck up their tears because they don't want to cry in front of you, just in the same way that they think laughing makes them look like, and it doesn't, you look like a psychopath that's been caught engaging in egregious criminal conduct. But these are psychos with a demonic spirit over them. And so it makes them feel comfortable on the inside, okay, for them to conduct themselves in the way that they do outwardly when they're caught engaging in criminal activity, okay? The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they're doing so in a specific environment, and leaving the vehicle with no person in it is still evidence of presence, okay? The OVITT Family Community Library isn't driving the Ontario Police Department vehicle, okay? None of these teenagers, none of the people of the state are driving the Ontario Police or having access or controlling the Ontario Police Department vehicle. And these are the demons that are playing games with their own liberty. And I documented it after the entity kept the fake sun over the Ramada by Windham, but yet it's over me in the presence of what is the demons laughing about being called Goldfinger when I'm asking him his name. Understand the difference between me speaking to what is something substantially similar to his name, but I have the first C initial. I have his image as well. He's going to produce, and he's not going to be laughing in federal court at all. But he is misidentifying himself for purposes of obstruction when he states that his name is Goldfinger. I asked him. So that's an obstruction charge. Just want to be clear on that. And the entity is also engaging in this. He is under the fake sun at this same location after 6 p.m. on video. He is under the fake sun at 7 a.m. on July 15, 2025. He's amongst the demons that are gang stalking. And this state actor, also I want to be clear, I'm talking to Kevin of the City of Ontario. I'm not talking to the Ontario Police Department. They are present, and you will see what I captured on video at the same venue where you're admittedly stalking under the fake sun, because what I captured on July 15th is not helpful for what he's doing at 9:43 in the morning under an enduring fake sun. Okay, but nonetheless, this is how you're going to get a department that is stalking me all day long at one address, and you're looking at every hour of the day, and the fake sun is at one address. And that's, again, well, I could just refer to 2025 documentation. This is going back to 2018. And the entities engaging in this regarding specific knowledge of who I am, malicious methods of gang stalking me, doing so while they're keeping the evidence under surveillance. What are they doing while I'm uploading the evidence that they're aware of? They're engaged in criminal summoning a relevant position at the Ontario Town Square. Okay, that's the analogous conduct of sounding helicopter activity, sounding sirens, sounding plane activity. So just coming around, being in close proximity to me, which is also a communication of a threat, and it's occurring while they're aware of and triggered by that which I'm documenting, that which I'm publishing. I just want to be clear on that. Capturing the specific environment, the sun is not over the 280 North Limit Apartments as I walk away from the town square, and so does that fake sun. And remember, it's doing the same thing when I go at 10 o'clock in the morning, and that fake sun moves to be over the entrance of that same library where it's still present for a casada to be monitoring my vagina, like I documented. And that's going to be compared with what are her partners that are gang stalking under 9:44 a.m. And that's going to be compared with their partners that are gang stalking under a 6 p.m. fake sun. And that's going to be compared with their partners that are stalking under a 4:07 p.m. fake sun, where I'm documenting that agency gang stalking me in helicopters, gang stalking by kidnapping under the 10:29 a.m. fake sun on June 16, 2022. This is an entity that's engaging in conduct which is to its own demise, and you need to understand their mental illness based on their obsession with me. They're stalking, and these are demons. They're just demons that are wearing police uniforms that they're going to be stripped of. But they are demons nonetheless, and they are obsessed. And that obsession cannot be hidden. It cannot be hidden while I'm documenting it, and it can't be hidden while they are now being proven to be actually targeting me and trying to falsely depict my character. In doing so, that's criminal defamation. That's the purpose of the gang stalking system. And I've shown that that doesn't work, and it's also unintelligent. Okay? But nonetheless, the entities engaged in that, and their obsession includes my vagina. Literally, it is about my genitalia, and that needs to be appreciated. The entities engaging in what is conduct, and these demons obsess over what's going on between my legs in every hotel room, in any apartment. When I'm inside a Tracy Banks apartment, basically, because I never rented any apartment in Ontario. And any public venue, which is nothing other than a facilitating venue, okay? And the entities engaging inside of the bathroom of Starbucks, the Ontario Police. Inside of the bathroom of Stater Brothers, the Ontario Police. Inside of the bathroom of the OVITT Family Community Library, the Ontario Police. Inside of Tracy Banks' apartment, Woodside Senior Apartments, Tracy Banks is gang stalking the Ontario Police. Okay, inside of the venue where Andy's Burgers, the bathroom, the Ontario Police. Okay, the entities engaged in the 150 East Hope Boulevard, San Bernardino Health Clinics, the county building, the bathroom there, the Ontario Police. That's documentation in 2020, 2021. The Ontario Police. Monitoring my genitalia specifically. They're going to be disbanded for not only federal stalking, and furtherance of the conspiracy to commit murder. Conspiring murder is a crime. So is federal stalking. Doing so as an entity, that's a whole unprecedented crime that I had to prove, and it's proven. And they're doing so with the entity that is also providing evidence against the Ontario Police Department. Okay, that's the entity that's stalking by plane under the fake sun. It is currently 9:57 a.m. and this is relevant to the entity that is engaged in what is monitoring specifically my vagina while gang stalking me everywhere that I'm going. And that's relevant to what is not police work. It's not criminal summoning. It's not a health check. And it's also not lawful. It's criminal activity by that department. While you are identifying surveillance. And you're also identifying malice. The malice of gang stalking someone is your evidence of the conspiracy to murder. That very malice. The entity that thinks that it's sneaky and is targeting somebody and is engaged in what is threatening them impliedly while you're in that environment, targeting them in a way that they typically don't have the evidence to prove, that's the entity that's conspiring murder. So how are you proving conspiracy to murder? It is through the very malicious system of gang stalking in the first place. In addition to what is evidence that is going to be, for example, you have the text message sent by Mike Lorenz to Tracy Banks. Yeah, we're going to kill her on, at Stater Brothers the next time she's walking down Vesta. Stuff like that. You have the evidence that you'll establish it, but gang stalking itself is evidence of conspiring murder. Okay? It is currently 9:58 a.m.
This is P.O.C. The entities monitoring, that is the Ontario Police gang stalking. And let me go ahead and recite their license plates again. They're doing so under the fake Sun. Ontario Police gang stalking with the people of the state. And it is license plate. I took many, many images. License plate 1591659. They're engaged in criminal summoning, and they're monitoring with the people of the state. The people of the state are just engaged in presence, stalking in their vehicles and traffic, stalking in all the establishments, stalking on the sidewalk as pedestrians. They're all monitoring, stalking me. And that is proven through the fake Sun, which I also have proof to prosecute the entire entity. Okay, and that's the entity that thinks that it's a numbers game, or thought that it was a numbers game. And now you're also witnessing evidence of the mental illness that is very real, that you need to know exists amongst a population that is a threat to the national security, because the mentally ill are delusional psychopaths, and they're caught red-handed. You don't engage in gang stalking in front of everybody. The whole purpose of it, it's supposed to be secretly executed. Okay, that's gone. So now you're engaged in gang stalking. They just engaged in a federal offense. They're going to prison. Everybody witnessed that prosecution right now. They're going to prison, and the entities engaged in what is gang stalking by the airport. The entities are clearly targeting by that airport. The entities gang stalking as the people of the state and the establishments and all their means of presence, which is criminal. None of it's constitutionally protected. They're doing all of it in front of everyone, all of you. And they're doing it in front of the feds that are also going to be forced to prosecute itself, because this is the prosecution of the federal government. Okay, the entity is doing so, and I want to be clear, the entity is doing so while they are monitoring the evidence in real time that is proving the fact that they've engaged in an unprecedented criminal system. All right, and it's all centered around, unfortunately, what you need to know, sex offenders surround my vagina. It is centered around my vagina, and the entity is engaged in very demented, very perverted, very despicable and sexually motivated and psychologically harmful criminal activity that occurs in bathrooms. That's what the Ontario Police is engaged in, and that's what they're doing in the same way that they just engaged in an iteration of the P.O.C. By talking to somebody else, and that somebody else is gang stalking me as well. They're doing so pertaining to my being disrobed in the bathroom, my bending over, my engaging in relieving myself. This is what an entity, including the Ontario Police, obsess over, and this is what they sit around surveilling. And they're demons that are monitoring. I'm prosecuting them monitoring in relevant position. I'm also prosecuting what is the malicious pattern of conduct, and this is relevant to the entity that's going to be committed, because they're also monitoring in the spirit. They're engaged in the practice of witchcraft, and this is why they're mentally ill now. This is why they're delusional now, engaging in what's a secret system that's no longer a secret in front of everybody. All right, it's currently 10:01 a.m. as you can hear in the background. This is All right, OVITT Family Community Library engaging in terrorism, and I've documented this before, both upon entry and exit of that state facilitating venue that's keeping me under surveillance and furtherance of the conspiracy to murder, which the OVITT Family Community Library is fully engaged in and is fully facilitating in concert with the people of the state. That is upon my exit, which is on surveillance cameras as well, of the OVITT Family Community Library, where I'm documenting the entity kept the fake Sun all day long in conformity to the pattern of conduct, engaging in terrorism, psychological torture, and the perpetual sex offense. That is the inhumane sexual violence underway, and demons like Sean Thrasher are engaging in terrorism while the entity is stalking me by helicopter upon my exit. This is relevant to the kidnappings and the acts of criminal summoning that Sean Thrasher and the OVITT Family Community Library have committed with that agency that terrorizes and stalks me using helicopter. That engages in criminal summoning outside of that same library at 9:44 in the morning, and it's still outside of the doors of that same library as I walk out in the afternoon. This is relevant to demons like Sean Thrasher, who are going to places where I said exactly where they're going, which is federal prison. The Ontario Police gang stalk with the people of the state, license BOBAJO. The Ontario Police Department's criminal activity, ongoing stalking, harassment, and terrorism is going to put people like Sean Thrasher in federal prison. License 7UUE720. License 9PUM264. License plate SBV5452, that's a Georgia plate. License 8DFU546. Securitas is gang stalking with light in the parking lot. Securitas shares in kidnapping that I'm documenting at the OVITT Family Community Library. License 9RVC667. License 30923Z2.
And it is currently 9:03 p.m. The entity that is gang stalking me, harassing and threatening me with the sound of helicopter activity pursuant to monitoring. Remember, the sound of the helicopter is accomplishing criminal activity. It's not just my ability to perceive what's going on in the environment. You are literally engaging in criminal surveillance. It's federal stalking as the sound of helicopter activity is created. And the entity is engaging in that. It's also legally relevant, the method of audible activity. When the entity is monitoring you through the police, that's a direct threat to your life and safety, especially when the entity has a pattern of kidnapping you through that agency. Okay, and the OVITT Family Community Library are violent sex offenders engaging in what is kidnappings and harassment and expelling me from that venue because I'm documenting them. And that has been documented and it's relevant. My wealth of documentation of being terrorized at that same venue by that same agency, you're going to prison. It's happening. 7ZMZ825, 8DSGs 505. This is P.O.C. The entity can continuously engage in what is providing me evidence, which is serving for what is inevitable regarding how you will target terrorists. And the entity is doing so, like I stated before, having a field day stalking me by helicopter and not mindful of the fact that those that are gang stalking me with that agency are going to federal prison like the demons working for that agency. License 9UWP868. This is P.O.C. It's 9:04 p.m. Stalking with the City of Ontario, 9 PIR 579. That's a white woman, Latina woman. That's a psychopath. She is stalking at the back portion of the Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue. She's doing so in Engineer Light. And she's also doing so while the Ontario International Airport is stalking. You'll see the images that I took several seconds ago of the entity stalking by flying over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments while I am north of that building. And again, as I continue to the sidewalk, at ARCO, they're flying north of that apartment building, downtown Ontario luxury apartments, as I proceed north, literally stalking by the airport, maintaining ongoing commercial planes, and you'll see a psychopath recognized by presence and behavior in the specific environment. Aiming light, stalking with light, and it's another homosexual that then goes home to tuck in her demon-possessed children and lay down beside her demon-possessed mate that's also obsessed with my vagina. While the gang stalking people of the state are engaging in public corruption and stalking me with a whole government using its planes and helicopters to follow me around, including inside of bathrooms. All right, it's currently, well, you'll see that, capturing the images. That's Chevron that's gang stalking while the people of the state are on that property. Okay, all they do is fill up their gas tank doing the exact same thing. That's the federal RICO case. It is currently 9:09 p.m. P.O.C. This is the entity following me from the library to Chevron and doing so with the people of the state. The people of the state includes license plate 7XQD174. This is indeed the specific environment. I'll show you again. Here's multiple shadows. This is the entity that expanded. Okay, the demons at gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square this morning under the 9:45 a.m. fake sun. Remember, the entity has the fake sun at the same OVITT Family Community Library. It didn't go anywhere. They're going to prison. That was called criminal pursuant to the pattern of conduct of stalking as an agency. It's gang stalking, and they're demons that do so in a specific environment, present day and night. This is the federal RICO case against the state of California and corrupt businesses like Chevron who are gang stalking. As an establishment, while the fake sun remains over me at Chevron, while the entity is stalking me with Chevron, Chevron's employees and Chevron's patrons are gang stalking and Chevron is making money, I'm going to prosecute Chevron. You already know what Starbucks is doing. They're doing the same thing that Chevron is doing, including under the fake sun. And they committed kidnapping together at Starbucks. The entity is going to be prosecuted and disbanded. Mike LORENZ is done with law enforcement. And this is the entity that's also going to serve to deport the gang stalking immigrants in the city of Ontario that are engaging in terrorism. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:17 p.m. There's no coincidence with regard to my exit of the venue and the demons flying over my head again in a specific environment. Coming up and filling up your gas tank is the pattern of conduct. Sex offenders that are also stalking to that extreme extent in the bathroom, which is why that corrupt agency that's not engaged in law enforcement is going to be disbanded. Since the city of Ontario doesn't need a police department, it's not going to have one. Okay, it's currently
9:17 p.m. The entity stalking as I exit the OVITT Family Community Library and stalking me from place to place, and so is the Ontario International Airport with the people of the state. This is again mental illness that's being exposed. Mental illness which is caused by what is demon possession, and the gang stalking terrorists that are demon possessed, calling itself an Ontario Police Department, is being disbanded. This is P.O.C. It's the current time is 9:18 p.m. at 506 North Euclid Avenue. Documented the fake sun rise, California Highway Patrol, 6:30 in the morning. Documented the sunset, Ontario International Airport, 6:45 in the evening. The fake sun at Starbucks at after 7 o'clock in the evening through the drive-through window. Those demons are gang stalking. That's what the entity is, gang stalking. That agency is being disbanded, P.O.C.
All right, sex offenders molesting with the Ontario Police, stalking together, sex offenders together. License 8JGB499, and so is ARCO. ARCO's a sex offender sharing in a sex offense, molesting, stalking, monitoring, and terrorizing with the Ontario Police Department, and doing so while ARCO and the people of the state that are gang stalking, molesting me with impossible light activity while they are stalking. And remember, they're stalking to commit murder. And that's why the entity is using a whole police department, but not an actual police department. They're engaged in surveillance. 8NXU677, sex offenders in the middle of the night stalking with a police department that's using a helicopter and the resources of a police department, like what I'm documenting. The demons that are gang stalking under the 9:36 a.m. fake sun. The two that are engaged in criminal summoning. And I also published that onto the X so that you can see the images, and I also referred to the video that you can view regarding the fake sun at the same location after 6 p.m. where the demon that I referred to as Goldfinger, something similar. His last name starts with a G, his first initial is a C, and he did deny provision of his name, which is a federal offense, especially while he's engaged in criminal monitoring. And this is under facts of federal group stalking and monitoring, not some irrelevant policy that a corrupt police department will cite that they don't even have any authority. You're going to federal prison for gang stalking, and it's a federal obstruction charge when you deny providing me your information regarding your identity while you're engaged in monitoring and furtherance of murder. And that same agency is gang stalking by helicopter. So like I stated, that's exactly what's happening. The entity is stalking by the Ontario International Airport, and you pay attention to the progression of the planes in the direction north as I am walking in the direction north. That's why they're not flying over the Ontario Town Square when I'm on Lemon Avenue. That's why they're not flying over the downtown luxury apartments when I'm in the parking lot off of Lemon Avenue. When I'm right here at the ARCO, they're flying over the parking lot stalking. And you can see that very clearly when you see where the fake sun is located, and then you see the relative position of the gang stalkers using commercial planes. Moments later, the entity is then stalking by helicopter and doing so, and that was indeed a homosexual psychopath stalking a woman in the middle of the night, and then is engaging what is going home, tucking in her kids when she's actually a homosexual, and she's also a psychopath, and she's engaged in criminal conduct in furtherance of committing murder, and very much invested in what is that murder while she is stalking with a police department that provides evidence against her by stalking me moments later in a helicopter with the intent to terrorize and harass. Okay, she's a sex offender engaged in psychopathic conduct, which Chevron is going to be prosecuted for. Chevron's property, Chevron's employees are sharing and providing a facilitating means of gang stalking with that agency that flies over me as I walk outside of that venue. That's exactly what the entity is doing at the OVITT Family Community Library. And by the way, following me from the OVITT Family Community Library and stalking me by a helicopter is still going to put Sean Thrasher in prison. Okay, this is the entity that's engaged in this conduct, and you are paying attention to an ongoing pattern of conduct that is ceaselessly underway, and you are always mindful of the entirety of that picture, and the entity is the only one that is delusional, and this is mental illness. When I say it's mental, it is literally, these are mentally ill psychopaths who are caught engaging what is conduct that they typically commit against people that don't have a voice, that don't have the ability to, or in an organized manner, in a palatable fashion, expose, prosecute, organize what the government is doing, because what the government is doing is also psychopathic. Even to say a fake sun sounds weird, but for the documentation. And I know that, and so do the demons, okay? But your psychopathic conduct doesn't falsely depict my character at all. It bears no reflection on me. I'm exposing your mental illness that poses a national security threat, and the mentally ill have no business acting like masquerading as law enforcement. That's exactly what's being disbanded. Flying over my head by helicopter. Nobody forgot that you committed kidnapping right there at that same Starbucks. They're going to prison. El Estrada, A. Quesada, Alex Escobar, they're going to prison. Nobody forgot you were engaged in criminal summoning this morning, the same agency. Talking to the people of the state, by the way, under the fake sun that's still there as I walk outside of that entrance, and you see an army of minions pushing strollers while they're monitoring my vagina under the same remaining fake sun. That's where they were engaged in criminal summoning at the Ontario Town Square. It's at the same location. They're going to prison, okay? They're going to federal prison. That's where gang stalking police officers, that's oxymoron with regard to targeting terrorism, targeting terrorists, domestic enemies of the United States, those that actually hate this country, those that actually hate American citizens, those that actually hate God-given rights given to us, not by the government, are going to be prosecuted accordingly. They're going to federal prison. Okay, and that agency is being disbanded. It's being removed. It's not a police department. It is a terrorist organization, and domestic terrorism is going to be targeted specifically, and it's going to start with the removal of a terrorist organization currently calling itself an Ontario Police Department. They are literally an embarrassment and public shame with regard to what law enforcement should look nothing like. It shouldn't. Law enforcement agencies across the country that are not corrupt should be encouraging disbanding as well, because you don't want to be confused with this which is going to be removed. Okay, the entities engaged in this conduct is directly relevant to the gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport. They're sharing in the same criminal pattern of conduct. The entity engages in what is gang stalking me by helicopter, and doing so in the method of flying over my head as I walk outside of the Chevron, where everybody inside of that Chevron is gang stalking, which is what you'll see: relevant positioning, light activity, ongoing activity creation. Stalking by going and hurrying to buy a bag of chips, buy some cigarettes, buy some gas, and they're engaging in the pattern of conduct. It's public corruption. That's the federal RICO case. Every employee, every patron, every establishment sharing in that pattern of conduct, and there's sex offenders trying to touch all over me with light. That's what they're doing. That's the whole purpose of having a fake sun. So you see the objective at nightfall. And it also doesn't help when my shadow is lined up across on the sidewalk in front of me. You're going to be prosecuted for that, in case you have not connected those dots. And the entity isn't. The entity is more obsessed with my vagina and chasing me down than thinking logically about what's going to happen or what are the consequences of what has already been laid out as a pattern of conduct. Meaning everybody, including the federal government, knows exactly what you're doing, knows exactly what you know while you do it, and knows the purposes for what you do it. And you're going to be prosecuted for it. 9BKF442 is representing the Ontario Police Department. And so is ARCO. It is currently 9:45 p.m. License 8SEJ001, P.O.C. A bunch of homosexuals in the city of Ontario are stalking, and so are predators of the male gender. License 05621C3, P.O.C. The Ontario Police Department is being removed because of the criminal activity that it is engaging in, and the criminal activity that it is supporting and facilitating and incentivizing, and criminal activity which is unprecedented. And it's also mentally deranged. Okay, this is P.O.C. It's currently 9:45 p.m. That's amplified audible activity while the public is sharing in what is gang stalking. And the city is providing ongoing facilitation while having the street lamps turn on and off while I cross the street. The amplified audible activity is for the purposes of gang stalking by ARCO and Chevron, Starbucks, UNICARE Community Health Center. Let me give you the license plates of these demons. License 8SHG346 and license 9DEC959, license 9ANB106. A bunch of demons that are engaging in stalking. It's not traffic. They're not going anywhere. They're pacing all around me. This is a population of demons that are obsessed with my vagina. P.O.C. It's currently 9:46 p.m. All right, license plates. 9STE762, sex offender, molesting while stalking, and doing so in furtherance of murder. This is the Ontario Police that's relying on sexual violence, they're relying on stalking, relying on ongoing harassment. They're sharing in psychological torture as an entity, and that third party is doing so on the roads and the highways. It's federal stalking, and it's a sex offense while you're unlawfully touching. And they're a psychopath because it's not even headlights that are touching. They're touching my thighs and my genitalia area and my stomach with engineered light while they're stalking with a police department that's going to be disbanded. License 1UBR379. License 8XPC587, license 7HWX195, And yeah, okay, that's P.O.C. License. Yeah, I read that one. 6NYD346. All right, this is P.O.C. All right, 9:51 p.m. I want to document the same agency is indeed stalking me, engaged in what is pacing around the same area while I'm uploading the evidence. So that's, again, the initial offense of flying over, stalking me by helicopter as I walk outside of the venue, and the venue being the OVITT Family Community Library, following me, stalking, to do the same thing by flying over the top of my head at the Chevron as I walk outside of that venue. And then as I upload that video onto the internet, the entity engaged in what is flying over me again, which I documented on X in real time, and the entity is engaged in what is monitoring with the sound of helicopter activity, meaning you are not going anywhere. All they're doing is flying in circles right over here, and this is the entity that's engaging in what is going to be prosecuted, okay? Obviously, they're stalking me, and they're very much fearful of everything that I'm putting on the internet, and a psychopath that is mentally ill, they engage in more incriminating conduct, and people of the state, like Sean Thrasher, are going to be asking, somebody like him, he's going to be crying in court asking for mercy, and he's not going to get it. He's going to get the fullest extent of the law with regard to a prosecution, and so are the kidnappers of the agency. But this is what the entity is doing now while I'm publishing evidence, and this is that pattern of conduct, but it's to its own detriment when you're being prosecuted. So the tactic of psychological torture, doing more and more and more of it, I'm documenting more and more and more of it, and that is the entity that's going to be removed, the airport being removed, the police department being removed, the fire department being removed, and the kidnappers themselves going to prison, and the kidnappers are the people of the state as well. Monitoring with that Ontario Police Department stalking at the traffic light, license 8SNZ 903. Those are homosexuals stalking a woman in the middle of the night, doing so with the police department that's sounding helicopter activity as a means of monitoring with them. They're stalking in the path with light in relevant position, and the audible noise is in the method of helicopter activity, also with the intent to obstruct justice under Title 18 federal stalking, where both monitoring and monitoring of evidence committed in furtherance of deterrence of documentation is underway. All right, it's currently, and that's at what is E Street in Euclid. Starbucks is engaging in gang stalking right now. This is where I'm at. The entire entity is, but I'm at Starbucks, ARCO, Chevron, where I've documented the sunrise and the sunset, okay? P.O.C, impossible light flying all around, just like when I'm documenting the entity is stalking by helicopter, impossible light flying all around. License 9NBF534, a psychopath. License plate 8WRC070. These are mentally ill psychopaths, and they're demon-possessed, sharing the same condition as the demons stalking in helicopters and in commercial planes. This is the demon-possessed population. This is P.O.C. This is the entity doing so while I'm uploading the podcast, and it's relevant to all the ways in which the entity is going to be prosecuted. Everybody's federal prosecution is incorporating everything that entity committed together. P.O.C, it's 9:54 p.m. Jason Isaac Fields is going to federal prison, which I've already stated. This is establishing more of the same. He's going to federal prison, P.O.C. 8JLY163 is a molester. This is a sex offender, stalking on the roads and the highways. It is indeed a gang stalking third party. This is a minion, a demon. That's what demons do. They stalk with light. And the entity is engaging in what is that sex offense while doing so on the roads and the highways. The other sex offender is license plate 9STE762, gang stalking at Starbucks, and that transaction will be on the record at 9:55 p.m. License plate 9HGM731, sex offenders molesting. This is the entity that's gang stalking with the Ontario Police on behalf of the Ontario Police, which is why they're being disbanded. All right, the entity is gang stalking on behalf of that agency. License plate 6MUG495. P.O.C. 9:56 p.m.